Hey everybody, I hope you're doing well. Let's get straight to this overview for week 3. So here's the overview page, which has the breakdown of assignments, videos, and lectures, and the assignment checklist. I'd like to walk through the writer's loop and just point out the sections that I want you to focus on for this week. We're in chapters 6 and chapters 8, and they have some relevant sections that will help you to complete this week's assignments. So here we are in the writer's loop. Chapter 6.1 is use academic essay structure. We ever get it uploaded to present a persuasive argument. So you may be saying to yourself, well, we're doing a synthesis essay. Why are we reading about persuasive arguments? And the reason for that is, at its heart, all academic writing is persuasive. You really are trying to get people to understand your point of view, and you do that through persuading them. So knowing how different academic arguments work is really helpful. And academic argument is different, and academic persuasive writing is different than other kinds of arguments. So I'd like you to read a little bit about that in 6.1. Following expected academic conventions to connect with your reader. I think all of this is just really helpful information in helping you to understand how your introduction works, how your thesis works, and how your body paragraphs will help support the things that you are introducing in your introductory paragraph. And then lastly, how your conclusion helps to emphasize your claim. You will be using sources for this essay, the synthesis essay, and those sources are used to support your argument, the point that you're trying to make in your essay. So there's a way that we go about incorporating that source information, and we use what's called in-text citations. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. You'll also need to have a works cited page. I don't mind that it's not perfect, but I want to get into the habit of actually doing a works cited. So you'll see examples here, and there is information in the book that will help you to do both the in-text citations and a works cited. So 6.1, you can skip the reflect section. I don't expect you to do these things. The understand section says to consider logos, pathos, and ethos as you organize your argument. You can pretty much skip over that. If you want to read it, that's fine. But if you're, your students who are living in the world, so I know that reading doesn't always take the first precedence in your lives. You have a lot of things calling on your time. So focus on the things that you think will be the most important for you. There are a lot of example papers that they include in this book, and sometimes those are helpful to look at just to see where, certain things might be relevant for you. So you don't have to read them in depth, but they can be interesting to look at. So that's 6.1. I also want you to read 6.2 through 6.4. Again, you can skip the reflect and apply sections. So let's take a look at 6.2. This is introducing your claim, essentially how you're going to persuade in your introduction. You want a hook, you want some background and context in there, and you want to make a claim, and that's part of your thesis. And then again, there are examples. You see the numbers here. They tell you the various parts of the introduction paragraph, and then avoiding common pitfalls in your introduction. Again, you can skip over the reflect section. The understand section, did I tell you to skip over that? No. The understand section is good, again, because they have these numbered, all the sentences are numbered, and they will actually explain the various parts of these sentences as they work in the introductory paragraph. Again, you can skip over the apply section. Then in 6.3, we have write persuasive paragraphs to support your claim. So here we're going into body paragraphs. So you've learned about introductions and thesis statements. Then you're going to learn about body paragraphs and how incorporating the sources in those body paragraphs can help support the point that you're trying to make in your paper. And so lots of interesting information there. Again, you can skip over the reflect. The understand section, this is, the videos are only active for students who have achieve. And since I didn't require you to have that, you won't have access to this video. I'm not totally keen on the videos anyway, so you can skip over that part. Again, there's another example, student draft paragraphs. They have the introduction and thesis, and just things are just kind of piecemeal right at this point. So yeah. And then in 6.4, we discussed the conclusion. So I'd like you to read a bit about conclusions, how they work in your paper, and how to have a memorable conclusion so that you make an impact on your audience. Again, you can skip over reflect, but the understand section with the numbered sentences, I really find that to be helpful, pointing out how they each have a rhetorical purpose within the conclusion. So that's chapter 6. And then we want to go to chapter 8. 8.2, I believe, is the one, right? Yes. So 8.2 is find and evaluate credible sources. So since you are working with some outside sources, it's really important that you know how to, first of all, locate your sources, and then also to evaluate credible sources. So I have a separate video on how to locate sources within the UC libraries, as well as other resources that are available to you as students. But you also want to make sure that they're credible sources, that you're not just pulling any old thing off the internet, because let's face it, folks, a lot of stuff on the internet is crap. So, and I use that word for a purpose, because in chapter 8.2, you will learn something called the crap test. So they address using Google and Wikipedia to locate sources, but not to use them as sources themselves. Sometimes professors will say, you know, oh, don't Google it, don't look it up on Wikipedia. But Wikipedia, I think, can be a very helpful resource. And I explain that in my lecture. And then including library resources, I tell you how to locate things in the UC library. But this is the part that I really want you to pay attention to, making sure that sources are credible using the CRAP test. And CRAP is a nice little acronym that stands for currency, reliability, authority, and purpose or point of view. I'm not going to explain all these points because you can read about them yourselves. And then the understand section, it's actually, you don't have to read through this. We are going to do an assignment that will actually wrap up and hopefully help you to apply the knowledge that you've learned from your reading. So those are the readings. I have a couple of course pages on organizing your essay and how to write exploratory and problem-solving essays. And I spoke a bit in the Unit 2 overview regarding these two handouts. And as I said, there are lectures. I have the MLA in text citation lecture, as well as a lecture on locating sources. The assignments for the week are a plagiarism quiz. So hopefully you will have learned some things about plagiarism in your readings. And then the source evaluation worksheet, which I will take you to in a moment. And then the synthesis essay rough draft, which is due Wednesday, the 3rd of November. So let's walk through this stuff. So first is the plagiarism quiz. Not sure why that came up next. The plagiarism quiz, and I'll just put you give you a little preview. Oh, this says that in reading in chapter 9. So I may need to amend the readings. There is some information in chapter 9 on the writer's loop. So give you a preview here. These are multiple choice. Most of them are multiple choice. Just need to follow the instructions, and there's 2 attempts for that quiz, and that's due Friday, October 29th. Let's see what's next on the list here. Next are my lectures. The MLA in-text citation lecture, which is just under half an hour. I think it's probably around 25 minutes. And then locating sources, I think that is under 15 minutes. So they're not super long, but there is important information in both of them. So I do highly recommend watching those. And the source evaluation worksheet. So this is set up as a quiz, but it's not a quiz. It is just, I wanted to have a place where you could do it online instead of typing it out as a document. I just wanted to have a different way of doing this information. So this is the apply section of 8.2, put your sources to the CRAP test. It's a recap of the things that you read in your book. And then I have embedded in here the academic search complete. So when you click on this link, and I showed you in my lecture for this, you click on this link and it will ask you to log in with your UC credentials. So the thing is, you don't really have to do this perfectly, but I want you to get used to using the library databases, get used to evaluating your sources, and just do the best that you can. So each question is an essay question. So you have a text box where you will submit the information. So you'll list your author, title, publication date, and the database that you use to locate the source. If you decide to use Google and look up, you could use Google Scholar, you could use Google itself, you don't have to find scholarly sources, but I prefer that you try at least one scholarly source. So try to get something through the database, but I want to know where you found it. So if it's just a link, that's fine. If you follow my recommendations on how to get the citations from Academic Search Complete, you could just copy and paste that into this box. That's perfectly fine too, as long as we have this identifying information. And then the second question for your first source, according to the CRAP test criteria, would this source be credible in an academic setting? Explain why or why not. So if you've taken something from the web and you evaluate it according to this criteria above, currency, reliability, authority, and purpose or point of view, you may actually be pleasantly surprised that your thing that you Googled and came up with passes the CRAP test. But then again, you may find that something that you got through the database actually doesn't pass the CRAP test because it might be old. Something that's outdated may no longer be relevant according to what your topic might be. So do that. There are 2 questions for each of your sources. The first part is the identifying information of that source. And then the second is the CRAP test evaluation. And then the same for your second source. So it's 4 questions, each is worth 1 point. And I believe you have a couple of attempts to do. So yeah, that's that. Did I say? Yes, you have 2 attempts and you will get, the highest attempt. So if you forgot something, you can always go back and try again. And then there is a course page on organizing your essay. I have provided some information on outlining, which may be helpful for you. This outline is more for, I don't know, maybe a compare and contrast essay here. So it has a formal outline, which is an alphanumeric outline using Roman numerals and letters and numbers. And then an unfamiliar, informal outline. I think this is taken from it's taken from Student's Companion to the Writer's Loop. The informal outline just has dashes and same kind of information, it's just organized a little bit differently. The other alternative to an outline is to use a chart or a table. And I got this idea from one of my Comp 1 students a couple of semesters ago. And it seemed to be very effective for the student as far as organizing the information. So the chart is set up, you have 3 columns. One is for paragraph, the other is for information, and the last one is for quotation or evidence. And then you just write in your chart which paragraph you're dealing with. So for the introduction, there's information here. You might want to copy your thesis. And then, of course, no quotations or evidence are necessary in the introduction paragraph. And then you would go for as many body paragraphs as you plan to have in your essay, the information that you intend to discuss in that paragraph, and then any quotations or evidence that you have. And then lastly, the last paragraph you would have is your conclusion, which, you restate your thesis, have a call to action, what have you. And again, there's no quotation or evidence that's necessary for your conclusion. And the main point is, however you choose to organize your ideas, the key is to find something that works for you. So the more you're able to organize your writing, the better and more logically your ideas will flow and be better understood by your audience. And for me, I think organizing beforehand really helps me with the writing process overall. It really just helps to get things going in the right direction. And for me, the writing task becomes that much more easy. I won't say easy peasy, but it does become a slightly more easy task. So that is the organizing your essay. So next is how to write exploratory and problem-solving essays. Again, it's a synthesis essay, and there are a variety of ways that you could go, a variety of directions, a variety of approaches that you could take. The key is to be able to find a topic, first of all. And so since you're researching and using some outside sources, it's important to choose a topic that you might be interested in exploring deeper for your research essay. That way you've already done some of that preliminary research, some of the thinking that goes into the research essay, as well as some of the writing. So I have a couple of approaches here that have been taken again from the Student's Companion to the Writer's Loop. One is how to write a problem-solving essay. So a problem-solving essay, or, if you think of the synthesis essay, the topic of it being a problem that needs to be solved, you could do it in this direction. So this is an idea for you to pursue. Again, since the synthesis essay topic is really wide open for you, the exploratory essay often corrects misunderstandings about the topic. So if you have a certain topic where you think you need to really explore and explain things to people, you could do that with your synthesis essay in an exploratory way. And so here again are some suggestions on how to go about creating the essay with brainstorming, writing down information, doing your research, consider possible misconceptions that you want to address relating to your topic, and then make an outline. So these are a couple of ways that you could approach the synthesis essay, but no means should you be limited to this. And since I've been talking about it, here is the actual assignment for the synthesis essay rough draft. So what you're doing in this assignment is incorporating sources to help you write about your topic. So you need to critically read at least 2 sources on the topic in order to analyze views that the authors have expressed. So you've chosen a topic and you've found some sources, you've evaluated those sources in the previous source evaluation worksheet assignment, and now you're going to use information from those sources to help support what you're trying to say in your essay. Let's see. So you want to be able to establish connections between those two sources. So you need to think about how are those viewpoints expressed in the sources similar or different, which authors have similar views on the topic, which authors have different views, so on and so forth. Make sure that you connect the author's views to your own views on the topic. So how do the author's views relate to your own views on the topic? And as you do all those things, you really need to work on the flow of the ideas, and that's why I have introduced the information on outlining. I just think outlining or using a chart to help organize your thoughts just makes the job that much easier for you. And as I stated before, this assignment is kind of a building block for the research project. You're getting used to incorporating sources with your own words. You're getting used to citing them. You're going to learn how to do a works cited page as well. So it's a really good idea that you use a topic that you want to then go in deeper with your research essay, just because you've already done a nice amount of work in this essay, and it just makes sense to just, okay, I'm going to dig deeper now, and I'm going to frame it as an argument, a research argument. So it should be, well, it says 4 to 5 pages using 12-point font and use MLA style. So that means correct citations and a works cited page at the end. This page count does not include the works cited page at the end, but I will address the works cited page. It's not necessary, the works cited, for this rough draft, because I want to talk about that in week 4. So that is the end of the module here. If you have any questions, if I forgot to address something, or if you have any questions about the assignment, any of the assignments actually, please email me, because I have lots of balls in the air and sometimes I forget which class knows which information. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out and ask me. So I'll stop sharing my screen here and say goodbye. Have a great week, everyone. So long.